The moment my wife threw my grandmother's worn cardigan into the swimming pool and screamed, "This is what I married, a worthless janitor who can't even afford real clothes," I felt my heart shatter into 1,000 pieces. But what she didn't know, what I didn't even know until the lawyer's phone call 3 hours earlier, was that I had just inherited $4.7 billion from a grandfather I never knew existed. I stood there, a 32-year-old man with olive skin weathered from years of night shifts, wearing my faded blue work uniform and scuffed brown boots, watching the only woman I had ever loved laugh at me alongside her wealthy friends while my grandmother's last gift to me sank to the bottom of her parents' infinity pool. The stakes were devastating and absolute. I was about to lose my marriage, my dignity, and the future I had spent 7 years building with Elena, and a single burning question consumed my mind. If she truly loved me, would she have ever treated me this way, or had our entire relationship been a lie built on her assumption that I would eventually become successful enough to match her family's status? My name is Daniel Reyes. I grew up in a small apartment in the Riverside district, raised by my grandmother Rosa after my mother passed away when I was 6. I never knew my father, my mother never spoke of him, and my grandmother would change the subject whenever I asked. I have thick dark hair that I keep short for work, brown eyes that my grandmother always said held old sadness, and hands that are rough and calloused from mopping floors and fixing pipes at Lincoln Memorial Hospital for the past 11 years. I met Elena Castellano during my night shift 4 years ago when she came in after a minor car accident. She was 28 then, stunningly beautiful with porcelain skin, flowing auburn hair, and green eyes that sparkled when she laughed. She came from money. Her father owned a chain of luxury car dealerships, but she said she didn't care about wealth. She said she loved my kindness, my work ethic, my heart. I believed her. God help me, I believed every word. The morning of the pool party had started like any other Saturday. I woke up at 5 a.m. out of habit, made coffee, and sat in our modest 2-bedroom apartment reading the newspaper while Elena slept in. Around 9, my phone rang, an unknown number with a New York area code. I almost didn't answer. The voice on the other end introduced himself as Harrison Wells, senior partner at Wells, Morrison and Associates, and asked if I was Daniel Reyes, son of Maria Reyes, grandson of Rosa Reyes. I confirmed, confused. Then he said words that didn't make sense. "Mr. Reyes, I'm calling to inform you that your grandfather, Antonio Castelletti, passed away 3 weeks ago. He left his entire estate to you. After taxes and settlements, you are inheriting approximately $4.7 billion in assets, properties, and investments." I laughed. I was still in shock when Elena emerged from the bedroom at noon, already dressed for her parents' pool party in a flowing white designer sundress and gold sandals. She barely looked at me as she grabbed her keys. "You're coming, right? My parents expect you there." Her tone carried that familiar edge of disappointment, the one that had grown sharper over the years. I nodded, still processing the phone call, still holding the number Harrison Wells had given me to call back on Monday. I thought about telling her. I opened my mouth to share this life-changing news with my wife, my partner, the woman I loved. But something stopped me, a small, quiet voice that said wait. See what happens. So I showered, put on my cleanest khaki pants and a blue button-up shirt that was slightly too big because I'd lost weight from stress, and drove us to the Castellano estate. The pool party was in full swing when we arrived. Elena's parents had invited their usual crowd, doctors, lawyers, business owners, and their perfectly polished spouses. I recognized most of them from previous gatherings where I had learned to make myself small, to speak only when spoken to ignore the pitying glances and whispered comments. Elena immediately abandoned me to join her friends by the cabana, leaving me standing alone near the appetizer table. I grabbed a sparkling water and found a quiet corner, thinking about my grandfather, a man I never knew, a man who had searched for me, a man who had given me everything despite never having met me. My eyes burned with unexpected emotion. "Danny! Come over here." Elena's voice rang out across the pool deck, and something in her tone made my stomach clench. I walked over to where she stood with a group of 6 friends, 3 couples who epitomized everything the Castellano family valued. There was Marcus, a surgeon with perfect teeth and a Rolex that cost more than my annual salary. His wife Brittany, a former model who looked at me like I was something stuck to her designer heel. There was Chad, who managed a hedge fund and never missed an opportunity to mention it. His girlfriend Sienna, an interior designer who once suggested I could maybe get a job carrying furniture if I ever wanted to upgrade. And finally, there was Victoria and James, old money from somewhere back east, who barely acknowledged my existence under normal circumstances. Elena pulled me into the center of their circle, her grip on my arm too tight. Her eyes had that glassy look she got when she'd had too many mimosas. "Everyone, I want to show you something," she announced, her voice carrying that dangerous sweetness. She reached into my back pocket and pulled out my wallet, the leather one my grandmother had given me before she passed, worn and soft from years of use. "Look at this. Just look at it." She held it up like evidence of a crime. "This is what I've been dealing with for 4 years. A man who carries a wallet older than his work boots." The group laughed. Not polite chuckles, genuine, cruel laughter. "Elena," I said quietly, reaching for my wallet. "Please." She pulled it away. "No, Danny, they should know. They should know what I've sacrificed to be with you." She opened the wallet and pulled out the one photo I kept inside, a small, faded picture of my grandmother and me from when I was 10. She studied it with theatrical disgust. "He carries this everywhere. A picture of himself as a poor little kid with his poor little grandmother. It's pathetic." I felt my heart stop. The world narrowed to a single point, my wife, holding my most treasured possession, mocking the woman who had raised me with nothing but love and sacrifice. "Give that back." My voice came out harder than I intended. But Elena was on a roll now, feeding off the attention. "Oh, and you should see his closet. 3 pairs of work pants, 5 t-shirts, and this ridiculous cardigan that his grandmother knitted him." She gestured to where my cardigan sat folded on a lounge chair nearby. I had taken it off because of the heat. "It's literally falling apart, and he treats it like it's made of gold." Something in me cracked. Not broke, cracked, like a dam with water pressing against it. "That cardigan took my grandmother 6 months to make," I said slowly. "She was going blind from cataracts she couldn't afford to fix, and she stayed up every night knitting it so I would have something warm for my first winter in high school." Elena rolled her eyes. "See? This is what I mean. Everything is sob story with you. Meanwhile, I'm here watching my friends buy houses while we live in a 2-bedroom apartment because you refuse to get a better job. I've applied for promotions every year," I said, my voice rising despite my effort to stay calm. "I've asked you to be patient while I finish my business courses online. I've done everything I..." "Patient?" Elena laughed, and it was an ugly sound. "I've been patient for 4 years. 4 years of telling my parents you had potential. 4 years of making excuses to my friends. 4 years of waiting for you to become someone worth being married to." She was shouting now, and everyone around the pool had stopped to watch. Her parents stood by the bar, their faces unreadable. I saw her father shake his head slowly, and I understood then, he had never approved of me. Neither had her mother. They had been waiting for this moment. "Elena." I tried one more time, reaching for her hand. "Please. Not here. Not like this." But she was beyond reason now, years of resentment pouring out like poison. She grabbed my grandmother's cardigan from the lounge chair and held it over the pool. "This is what I married," she announced to the entire party. "A worthless janitor who can't even afford real clothes. A man who will never be anything. A man who," she threw the cardigan into the pool, "isn't worth the fabric in this stupid sweater." I watched my grandmother's final gift sink beneath the turquoise water, and something inside me went very still. Was it always about money? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. From the beginning, was it always about what I could become instead of who I am? Elena's face twisted into something I didn't recognize. Of course it was about money. What else is there? You think love pays for a house? You think your kind heart covers medical bills? You think your pathetic night shifts will ever give me the life I deserve? She stepped closer, jabbing her finger into my chest. I married you because I thought you had ambition. I thought you were just temporarily poor, not permanently worthless. The pool deck was silent. 50 people stood frozen, watching my marriage collapse in real time. I saw Elena's mother cover her mouth, but not in horror, in satisfaction. This was what they wanted. An ending. A reason for their daughter to finally leave the janitor who had never been good enough. I walked to the edge of the pool. The cardigan had settled at the bottom, blue yarn spreading like clouds in the water. I took off my shirt, dove in fully clothed, and retrieved it. When I surfaced, Elena was laughing again, and her friends were taking videos on their phones. Look at him, she gasped between laughs. Swimming like a dog for his precious sweater. I climbed out of the pool, cradling the soaked cardigan against my chest. Water streamed down my face, or maybe it was tears. I couldn't tell anymore. I looked at Elena, really looked at her, and saw clearly what I had been blind to for years. This woman had never loved me. She had loved an idea of me, a potential version that would eventually earn her approval. I walked away without another word. Behind me, I heard her shouting something about not bothering to come home, about calling her lawyer, about finally being free of me. I didn't look back. I got in my old Honda Civic, placed the wet cardigan on the passenger seat, and drove. 3 hours later, I was sitting in a hotel room when my phone rang. It was Harrison Wells again. Mr. Reyes, I wanted to follow up on our earlier conversation. Are you available to meet tomorrow? There are significant details about your inheritance we need to discuss. I stared at the water-stained cardigan drying on the radiator. Yes, I said. I'm available. The next morning, I found myself in a private jet conference room flying to New York, wearing borrowed clothes because I had left everything behind. Harrison Wells was a distinguished man in his 60s with silver hair and kind eyes that reminded me of my grandmother. He handed me a leather folder thick with documents, property deeds, company shares, bank statements, and a personal letter in handwriting I had never seen. Your grandfather wrote this 3 days before he passed, Harrison explained. He asked me to ensure you received it personally. With shaking hands, I opened the letter. My dearest Daniel. Asterisk, by the time you read this, I will be gone, and you will know the truth about your heritage. I have spent 50 years regretting the fight that drove your father away, and 20 years searching for you. When I finally found you 6 months ago, I watched from afar, and what I saw made me proud beyond measure. I saw a man working night shifts to support his family while pursuing education. I saw a man who visited his grandmother's grave every Sunday, rain or shine. I saw a man who gave his last $20 to a homeless veteran outside the hospital. You do not need my money, Daniel. You are already wealthy in ways I never was. But I am giving it to you anyway, because you will use it wisely. You will help people. You will honor the memory of the grandmother who raised you when your parents could not. You will prove that the Castelletti blood carries not just ambition, but compassion. I am sorry I never had the courage to meet you. I hope you can forgive a foolish old man who ran out of time. With all my love, your grandfather, Antonio, *. I wept. There, in that private jet conference room, wearing clothes that weren't mine, flying toward a fortune I had never asked for, I wept for the grandfather I never knew, for the life I had lost, for the woman who had broken me. But something else stirred beneath the grief. Something that felt like rising. For the next 3 months, I worked with Harrison and his team to understand my inheritance. I didn't touch the money at first, I wasn't ready. I needed to become the man my grandfather had described, the man he believed I already was. I enrolled in intensive business courses. I met with financial advisors, charity consultants, and community leaders. I created the Rosa Reyes Foundation for single grandparents raising grandchildren, funding education, healthcare, and housing assistance. I bought the hospital where I had worked for 11 years and implemented policies ensuring every employee, especially janitorial staff, received living wages, healthcare, and educational opportunities. I didn't think about Elena. I couldn't. The wound was too fresh, too raw. But she thought about me, or rather, her lawyers did. The divorce papers arrived 8 weeks after the pool party, citing irreconcilable differences, and requesting alimony based on her diminished quality of life during our marriage. She wanted half of everything I owned, which she believed to be approximately $12,000 in savings and a 10-year-old Honda Civic. I signed the papers without contest. She could have the apartment, the car, the savings. Let her think she had one. 6 months after the pool party, something unexpected happened. I was working late in my new office, a modest space I had rented despite being able to afford towers, when Harrison called with news that made my blood run cold. "Daniel, I need to tell you something about your wife. Your ex-wife." He paused, and in that pause, I heard the sound of my healing heart preparing for another blow. The Castellano family has been facing financial difficulties for the past 3 years. Elena's father overextended on business loans, made some bad investments. They're about to lose everything, the dealerships, the house, all of it. Elena knew when she married you. Her father's advisors suggested that you showed potential for growth, and they hoped your career trajectory would eventually contribute to their recovery. When that didn't happen as fast as they needed. They had planned it from the beginning. The meeting in the hospital, Elena's minor accident, had likely been orchestrated. The romance, the wedding, the 4 years of subtle pressure for me to earn more, climb higher, become valuable. All of it had been a long-term investment that hadn't paid off. "There's more," Harrison continued. "Elena has been asking questions about you. She hired a private investigator last month after someone at a charity event mentioned the Castelletti Foundation and its mysterious founder." The foundation. I had kept my involvement anonymous, working through layers of legal protection. But Elena had always been clever when she wanted something. "She doesn't know it's me?" "Not yet. But she's looking. And given the amount of media attention your grandfather's estate attracted when the will was originally filed, it's only a matter of time before someone connects the dots." I leaned back in my chair and looked at the framed photo on my desk, my grandmother and me, the same photo Elena had mocked at the pool party. Beside it sat the cardigan, restored by a specialist who handled antique textiles. The blue yarn was slightly faded from its time in the pool, but it was whole. Like me. "Let her find out," I said finally. "But not from the press. From me." The Castellano family's annual winter gala was legendary among the wealthy circles of our city. This year, it was being held at the Grand Imperial Hotel, and the irony was not lost on me that I now owned that hotel as part of my grandfather's real estate portfolio. I hadn't planned to attend until Harrison suggested it might be appropriate to make my first public appearance as Antonio Castelletti's heir at an event where the truth would resonate most deeply. I arrived late, intentionally. The ballroom was glittering with crystal chandeliers and designer gowns when I walked through the doors wearing a tailored charcoal suit that fit me perfectly, one of the first expensive items I had allowed myself to purchase. My hair was professionally cut, my posture confident from months of therapy and self-work. I was still Daniel Reyes, still the janitor's son, still Rosa's grandson. But I had learned to carry myself differently. Elena spotted me before I spotted her. I heard her gasp from across the room, watched the color drain from her face as she pushed through the crowd in an emerald gown that probably cost more than a month of my old salary. "Daniel? What are you? How did you?" She looked at my suit, my watch, my polished shoes. I don't understand. The room had grown quiet. People were watching. Good. Hello, Elena. I kept my voice calm, steady. You look well. How did you get in here? This is invitation only. Her eyes darted around nervously, looking for security. Her father was approaching, face red with anger. I received an invitation, I said simply. Several, actually. Including one from the hotel owner, who I believe you know. I paused. Or rather, you knew him as an anonymous foundation chairman until recently. Understanding dawned in her eyes, followed quickly by calculation. I watched her face cycle through emotions, shock, confusion, hope, greed, and finally settle on something that might have been desperation. Daniel. Danny. She reached for my arm, her touch now gentle where it had once been rough. Why didn't you tell me? If I had known. If you had known I was wealthy, you would have treated me with basic human dignity? I finished her sentence with a question that needed no answer. That's rather the point, isn't it? Her father reached us then, his face a mask of forced cordiality. Mr. Reyes. We weren't aware you were coming. Mr. Castellano. I nodded politely. I understand your dealerships are facing some challenges. I hope you'll accept my condolences on what must be a difficult time. He flinched. Everyone watching saw it. The whispers began immediately, spreading through the crowd like wildfire. Elena grabbed my hand, and there were tears in her eyes now. Danny, please. I made a mistake. I was under so much pressure, my father's business, the expectations, I just couldn't handle. Please, can we talk? Privately? I never stopped loving you, I was just scared Anne. Elena. I gently removed my hand from hers. You threw my grandmother's cardigan into a swimming pool and called me worthless in front of 50 people. You told me our entire marriage was about money. You filed for divorce. I paused, making sure she understood my next words completely. I'm not here to reconcile. I'm here to be seen. Because for 4 years, you made me feel invisible, and I need you, I need everyone here, to see me clearly. She crumpled. Right there in the middle of the ballroom, surrounded by everyone she had spent her life trying to impress, Elena Castellano sank to her knees and sobbed. Her father tried to lift her, but she pushed him away, reaching for my legs like a child. Please, she whispered. Please, Danny. I'll do anything. Don't leave me. Don't leave us. I knelt down until I was at her level, and for a moment, I saw the woman I had married, the vulnerable girl beneath the facade who had been taught that worth was measured in dollars and status. I felt a flash of genuine sorrow for her, for the life she would lead always chasing something she would never find. Elena, listen to me. I spoke softly, just for her. I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. I forgive your father, and your mother, and everyone who looked at me and saw only a janitor. But forgiveness is not reconciliation. I wish you happiness, truly. But that happiness won't include me. I stood up, offered her my hand to help her rise, and when she was on her feet, I stepped back. There's a check waiting at the front desk, I said, loud enough for her father to hear. It's enough to cover your family's debts. Consider it a wedding gift, delayed. The conditions are attached, the money goes to saving jobs, not yachts. Harrison will explain the details. I walked out of the ballroom without looking back. And this time, I could hear the silence of respect rather than mockery following me. 1 year after the pool party, I found myself standing outside a small community center in the Riverside district, my old neighborhood, 3 blocks from where my grandmother had raised me. The Rosa Reyes Community Center was about to have its grand opening, and I was terrified in a way that billions of dollars couldn't fix. You're going to be fine. The voice came from beside me, and I turned to find a woman I had met 3 months earlier at a foundation board meeting. Her name was Maria Santos, and she was a 30-year-old social worker with warm brown skin, kind eyes, and a laugh that made me believe in second chances. She had grown up in a neighborhood like mine, put herself through school on scholarships and night jobs, and dedicated her life to helping families in crisis. When we first spoke, she had no idea who I was. She thought I was just another volunteer at the foundation event. By the time she learned the truth, she already knew the shape of my heart. "What if I mess up the speech?" I asked, only half joking. Maria took my hand. "Then you'll mess up the speech, and the kids inside will love you anyway because you're the guy who built them a place to do homework and eat hot meals." She squeezed my fingers. "Your grandmother would be proud, Daniel. So proud." I thought about the journey that had led me here, the humiliation, the heartbreak, the unexpected inheritance that had transformed my external circumstances but not my essential self. I was still the man who visited his grandmother's grave every Sunday. I was still the man who gave his last $20 to strangers who needed it more. I was still the man who believed that kindness mattered more than wealth, even while holding more wealth than he could ever spend. But I was also more. I was a man who had learned that true worth cannot be assigned by others, it must be claimed from within. I was a man who had discovered that forgiveness is not weakness but strength. I was a man who had found love again, not in spite of his journey through darkness but because of it. I walked into the community center, and 50 children cheered. Their faces were bright with excitement, with hope, with the kind of joy that money can facilitate but never buy. I saw myself in them, young Daniel, who had eaten free lunches and worn second-hand clothes and wondered if he would ever be enough. "Hello, everyone," I said into the microphone, my voice steady. "My name is Daniel Reyes. I grew up in this neighborhood, in an apartment 3 blocks from here. My grandmother raised me on love and sacrifice and the belief that every person has value, not because of what they own, but because of who they are." I paused, looking at Maria in the front row, at the staff who had believed in this vision, at the children who represented everything worth fighting for. Some people tried to make me feel worthless because I didn't have money. They were wrong. And some people will try to make you feel that way too. They will be wrong. Your worth is not determined by your wallet, your zip code, or anyone's opinion of you. Your worth is infinite, and it was decided long before you were born. The children cheered again, and I felt tears running down my face without shame. That night, after the celebration had ended and the last child had gone home clutching a new backpack full of school supplies, I stood alone in my grandmother's restored cardigan, looking at a framed photo of her that now hung in the center's main hall. Maria found me there, and she didn't speak, she simply stood beside me, her presence a comfort deeper than words. "I wish she could have seen this," I whispered. "She does see it," Maria said softly. "She's been watching you all along." I turned to face her, this woman who had come into my life at exactly the right moment, who loved the janitor and the billionaire equally because she understood they were the same man. In her eyes, I saw a future I had never dared to imagine, not a future of wealth and status, but a future of partnership, of purpose, of children who would know their father's true history and learn that adversity is not something to overcome but something to transform. "Maria Santos," I said, reaching into my pocket for the ring I had been carrying for weeks, "you have seen me at my most uncertain, my most vulnerable. You have loved me not for what I can give you but for who I am. Will you?" "Yes." She said it before I could finish, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, Daniel. 1,000 times yes." I slid my grandmother's ring, the only piece of her jewelry I had kept, onto Maria's finger, and in that moment, I understood the final lesson of my journey. The pool party had felt like an ending, but it was actually a beginning. Elena's cruelty had broken something, but broken things can be mended into shapes more beautiful than the original. My grandfather's money had given me power, but my grandmother's love had given me something far more valuable, the unshakable knowledge that I was always enough. To anyone who has ever been made to feel worthless, by a partner, a family member, a society that measures value in dollars, please hear me, their assessment of you is wrong. You are worthy of love, respect, and dignity exactly as you are. The circumstances of your life may change, but your essential worth remains constant. And sometimes, the darkest moments of humiliation are simply clearing the path for light you cannot yet see. If this story touched your heart, if it made you cry or gave you hope, please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Share it with someone who needs to hear that they matter. Because every view, every like, every subscription helps us bring more stories of redemption, resilience, and the triumph of the human spirit to people who are searching for proof that things can get better. They can. They will. They did for me. And they will for you too. The end, or perhaps, the beginning.